Nagib Maxamed went to Atesh bar on Boxing Day night to celebrate turning 28. By 1:30 a.m., he was lying in the smoking area with a stab wound to the chest. Milton Keynes sits about 50 miles northwest of London, a planned city built in the 1960s with wide boulevards, modern architecture, and a grid system designed for order and efficiency. By 2021, it had grown into a vibrant urban center with shopping districts, restaurants, and nightlife that drew crowds from across Buckinghamshire's central Milton Keynes. The city center, known locally as CMK, was where people went for nights out. Grafton Gate East, in particular, had become a hub for dining and entertainment. Restaurants lined the street. Bars stayed open until early morning. On holiday weekends, the area filled with people celebrating, socializing, making memories. Boxing Day 2021 fell on Sunday, December 26th. Christmas had just passed. People were still in that liminal space between holidays, taking advantage of time off work, spending money from Christmas gifts, enjoying the last days of the festive season before ordinary life resumed. That night, Atesh bar and restaurant was hosting an event. The venue, a Turkish establishment that had been operating for about 6 months, had rented its space to local promoters called Vibez MK for a Boxing Day music event called Fever. About 60 people were expected. DJs were booked. The venue had hired 10 security staff to manage the crowd, more than usual for an event that size. Nagib Maxamed had plans to be there. It was his birthday. He was turning 28. And he wanted to celebrate with friends in the way many young people do. Music, drinks, dancing, the energy of being alive and surrounded by people you care about. He had no way of knowing it would be his last birthday. Nagib Maxamed was 28 years old in December 2021. He'd grown up in Milton Keynes, attended local schools, built a life in the city he called home. People who knew him used similar words to describe him: amazing, kind, energetic. The kind of person who made you feel seen, who remembered details about your life, who genuinely cared. Lauren Harrison, who'd gone to college with Nagib, posted on social media after his death. My heart goes out to his family. I went to college with him, an amazing guy. I'm in shock. Steve Corkett wrote, "This hit me hard. This guy would help you no matter what and would light up a room with his energy and smile." Heidi Peacock, who'd worked with Nagib for years, said, "This has broken me. Such a nice lad." These weren't generic condolences. They were specific memories from people who'd known him in different contexts: school, work, social circles. And they all pointed to the same qualities. Nagib was someone who brought light, who helped without hesitation, who made spaces better by being in them. His father, Mustafa Mohammed, would later speak publicly about his son, trying to find words adequate to describe what the family had lost. But how do you summarize a person's entire existence? How do you convey 28 years of memories, of inside jokes, of ordinary moments that become precious only after they're gone? Boxing Day 2021 started like any other holiday. Nagib likely spent time with family earlier in the day. Christmas had been the day before the extended family gathering, the traditional meal, the gift exchange, all the rituals that mark the season. Boxing Day in Britain is its own kind of holiday, a day to relax, to enjoy leftovers, to maybe venture out for sales or entertainment. At some point that evening, Nagib made plans to go to Atesh. The Vibes MK event, Fever Boxing Day, was being promoted on social media. Bashment music, a genre rooted in Jamaican dancehall and popular in UK urban communities, would be playing. It was exactly the kind of event where you'd celebrate a birthday with friends, where the music and atmosphere created the kind of night you'd remember. Nagib arrived at Atesh sometime after dark. The venue was located in a multi-story building on Grafton Gate East. Atesh occupied space that could accommodate significant crowds. There was a main floor, a smoking area outside, security at the doors. The event promoters, Vibez MK, had organized everything. Atesh's role was to provide the venue, the bar service, the infrastructure. Security was searching everyone who entered. That was standard protocol for nightlife venues in 2021, especially for ticketed events. Patrons lined up, got checked, went inside. The night progressed normally. Music played. People danced, drank, socialized. By all accounts, the atmosphere was exactly what you'd expect. Festive, energetic, celebratory. Nagib was with friends. He was celebrating his birthday. The night was going well. And then something happened in the smoking area. Around 1:30 a.m. on December 27th, technically early Monday morning, but still part of the Boxing Day night out, violence erupted in the outside smoking area of Atesh. 2 men were stabbed. One was Nagib. The other was a man in his 20s whose identity was never publicly released. What exactly happened remains unclear. Was it a targeted attack? A confrontation that escalated? A dispute that turned violent? The smoking area was outside, but attached to the venue, a designated space where patrons could step out for cigarettes, for fresh air, for a break from the music and crowd. Security staff inside Atesh apparently knew something had occurred. They saw someone injured, saw blood. But according to later police reports, they didn't immediately call emergency services. They thought someone else had already called. There were 10 security personnel working that night, plus other staff, and somehow in the confusion or chaos, the immediate response wasn't what it should have been. Someone, whether venue staff, security, or witnesses, eventually got Nagib and the other injured man to the hospital. They arrived at Milton Keynes University Hospital around 1:30 a.m. with serious injuries. Medical staff immediately began emergency treatment. Both men had been stabbed. Both were in critical condition. Thames Valley Police were notified. Officers responded to both the hospital and the Atesh venue. At the scene, they found security staff who confirmed there had been an altercation in the smoking area. They saw a group leave the premises, including a male who was injured with blood on him. That person had sat by the door briefly, then someone he was with had taken him away by car. The venue was still operating when police arrived. According to later testimony from owner Mr. Atesh, he immediately stopped alcohol sales and tried to keep patrons inside to maintain order. But the initial response, the delay in calling police, the continued operation even briefly after the stabbing, would become points of serious concern. Nagib fought for his life through the night and into Tuesday, December 28th. His family was with him, his father, his loved ones, everyone who knew him and couldn't imagine a world without him. But the stab wound to his chest had been too severe, the damage too extensive. On Tuesday afternoon, Nagib Maxamed died. He was 28 years old. He'd been celebrating his birthday less than 48 hours earlier. Detective Inspector Deshan Avramovich of Thames Valley Police's Major Crime Unit took lead on the case. This wasn't a random street crime. This was a murder that had occurred at a licensed venue during an organized event with security present. The circumstances demanded thorough investigation. A post-mortem examination confirmed what medical staff already knew. Nagib had died from a single stab wound to the chest. The other victim, still hospitalized, was in stable condition. He would survive, but he'd witnessed whatever had happened in that smoking area. He was a key witness. Thames Valley Police established a major incident room. They began the methodical work of building a timeline. Who was at Atesh that night? Who was in the smoking area? What led to the violence? Who had the weapon? The first challenge was gathering evidence from the venue itself. Police requested CCTV footage immediately. Atesh had multiple cameras, security cameras that should have captured arrivals, departures, interactions. But according to police testimony at a later licensing hearing, the venue didn't immediately hand over the footage. There was delay, resistance, confusion about what was being asked for. This became a significant issue. In a murder investigation, the first hours are critical. CCTV footage can show who was present, what time events occurred, who left when. Every hour of delay potentially means lost evidence, people leaving the area, memories fading. Police also faced the problem of witness cooperation. About 60 people had been at the event. Most knew each other, according to venue management. This was a community event, friends and acquaintances gathering for Boxing Day celebration. But after a murder, people become reluctant to talk. Some fear being implicated. Some don't want to be seen as informants. Some genuinely didn't see what happened. Detective Inspector Avramovich made public appeals. "We are rapidly progressing a number of lines of inquiry in order to trace those responsible," he told media. "We are aware that there may be more people who have witness information that have not yet come forward, and I would ask them to please get in touch as soon as possible." The investigation focused on several key areas. First, identifying everyone who was at Atesh that night. The venue should have had a guest list, entry records, some documentation of who attended. Event promoters. Vibe's MK should have had ticket sales or invitation lists. Police began the process of tracking down every attendee. Second, examining the physical evidence from the smoking area. A knife had been used. Where was it? Had the attacker taken it when they fled? Was it discarded nearby? Forensic teams processed the scene, looking for blood spatter patterns, fingerprints, DNA, anything that could identify the perpetrator. Third, analyzing the CCTV footage once it was finally obtained. Cameras at Atesh would show who was in the smoking area when the attack occurred. Cameras on surrounding streets might show people leaving the area afterward. Modern investigations rely heavily on video evidence, and Central Milton Keynes had extensive coverage. Fourth, investigating potential connections to Birmingham. Something about this case pointed investigators toward Birmingham, a city about 60 miles northwest of Milton Keynes, were the attackers from Birmingham. Had they traveled specifically for this event? Was there a pre-existing conflict between Nagib and someone from that city? On January 4th, 2022, 8 days after the stabbing, Thames Valley Police made their first arrests. A 29-year-old man and a 34-year-old woman, both from the Birmingham area, were arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder. They were taken into custody and questioned, but the investigation didn't stop there. Within days, more arrests followed. Eventually, 6 people in total were arrested. 5 men aged 21 to 29, and 1 woman aged 34. All were from Birmingham. All were arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder. The pattern suggested this wasn't a random attack. 6 people from the same city, all potentially involved in or connected to the same incident, indicated planning or group dynamics. Had multiple people participated in the attack? Were some present but not directly involved? Did some know what was going to happen beforehand? All 6 were eventually released on police bail, while the investigation continued bail until February 1st, then presumably extended as the complex case developed. The arrests demonstrated police progress, but arrests aren't convictions. The investigation had to build an airtight case. Meanwhile, Atesh bar and restaurant faced immediate consequences. Thames Valley Police applied to Milton Keynes Council for an urgent suspension of Atesh's alcohol license. The application argued that the venue had failed to meet licensing objectives for prevention of crime and disorder and public safety. At a licensing committee hearing on January 5, 2022, police outlined their concerns. The venue allegedly hadn't immediately called emergency services. They hadn't immediately provided CCTV footage. They'd initially resisted closing down the event even after a stabbing had occurred. Security staff had seen someone injured with blood, but didn't call police, assuming someone else had. Mr. Atesh, the venue owner, defended his actions. "I'm very sad for what happened that night," he told the committee. "Something I don't want to happen, that people die next to my premises, or on the street. I want to be together with the community to stop knife crime." He explained he'd hired 10 security staff, searched everyone entering, taken what he thought were proper precautions. But the committee suspended Atesh's license. The venue couldn't sell alcohol, couldn't serve food after 7 p.m., effectively couldn't operate. Mr. Atesh later said he would no longer rent the venue for private events, acknowledging that something about that night's organization had failed catastrophically. On January 27, 2022, 1 month after Nagib's death, his father made a public appeal. Mustafa Mohammed stood before cameras and spoke directly to anyone who might have information. His words carried the weight of a parent's grief, of a family searching desperately for answers. On the 27th of December, 2021, our son Nagib Maxamed was killed following an altercation at Atesh restaurant in Grafton Gate East, Mustafa said. "Our hearts are broken." The appeal was both specific and universal. Specific because Mustafa was asking anyone present that night to come forward with what they saw. Universal because every word reflected a parent's worst nightmare: losing a child to senseless violence, then facing the torture of not knowing exactly what happened or why. Detective Chief Inspector Andy Sherwood, who had taken over as senior investigating officer, stood beside the family during the appeal. "I would urge anyone with information to think about the family of the murder victim, Nagib Maxamed," he said. "Nagib's family deserve to know what happened to him. Therefore, if you do have any information, please come forward and help us to provide justice and closure for them." The appeal specifically asked for photos or videos from inside the venue. In 2021, almost everyone had smartphones. Almost everyone documented their nights out on social media: Instagram stories, Snapchat posts, TikTok videos. Somewhere in someone's phone might be footage that captured a crucial moment, a crucial person, a crucial detail. Police also asked for dashcam footage from anyone driving in the area between midnight and 2 a.m. Modern cars increasingly have dashboard cameras recording constantly. Someone driving through central Milton Keynes that night might have inadvertently recorded people leaving Atesh, might have captured something significant without realizing it. By late January, police had interviewed numerous witnesses, but were still seeking additional accounts. Detective Chief Inspector Sherwood noted that several people present at Atesh hadn't yet provided evidential statements. Some had spoken informally, but hadn't given official testimony. Some hadn't come forward at all. This is common in cases involving nightlife violence. People don't want to be involved. They fear retaliation. They don't trust police. They don't want to testify in court. The code of silence, whether formal or informal, protects perpetrators and frustrates investigations. But this case had unusual elements that should have worked in favor of prosecution. It occurred at a licensed venue with security and CCTV. It involved a relatively small group of attendees, many of whom knew each other. Multiple people were arrested quickly, suggesting police had strong leads. The victim was universally described as kind and non-confrontational, making random violence seem unlikely. So what was missing? Why hadn't the case progressed to charges and trial by early 2022? The answer likely involved the complexity of proving who exactly had stabbed Nagib. In a chaotic situation with multiple people present, establishing individual culpability becomes difficult. If 6 people were involved or present, which one held the knife? Which ones participated actively? Which ones were merely witnesses who failed to intervene? British law requires proof beyond reasonable doubt. Arrests indicate reasonable suspicion, but conviction requires meeting a much higher standard: Police needed witnesses willing to testify. They needed forensic evidence linking a specific person to the weapon. They needed to construct a narrative that a jury would find convincing. Meanwhile, Nagib's friends and colleagues continued paying tribute. The community remembered him not as a victim, but as the person he'd been, someone who helped without hesitation, who lit up rooms, who made people feel valued. A fundraising appeal was established in his memory, channeling grief into something constructive, something that might help other families in poverty. The contrast between Nagib's life and his death was stark. He'd been celebrating his birthday. He'd been with friends. He'd been doing exactly what millions of people do on holiday weekends, going out, enjoying music, marking another year of life. And in a smoking area outside a restaurant in central Milton Keynes, someone had stabbed him in the chest and killed him. The investigation continued through early 2022, but public updates became less frequent. This is typical. As cases progress toward potential trial, police stop commenting publicly to avoid compromising prosecution. The 6 arrested individuals remained on bail, their status unclear. Thames Valley Police maintained that they weren't looking for additional suspects beyond those 6. At this stage of our investigation, we are not linking any other suspects to these most serious of offenses, Detective Chief Inspector Sherwood had said. The implication was clear. Police believed they knew who was responsible. The challenge was proving it to the standard required for conviction. As of the available public record, Nagib Maxamed's murder remains without publicized resolution. 6 people were arrested. The investigation identified suspects, but whether charges were filed, whether trials occurred, whether justice was served, these details aren't available in public reporting. This is the frustrating reality of some cases. Media attention fades. Unless there's a conviction or a particularly dramatic trial, follow-up coverage disappears. Families are left seeking justice through a system that moves slowly, that requires patience measured in years, that sometimes produces no satisfying conclusion. What is certain is what Nagib's family lost. A son, a friend, a person who lit up rooms with his energy. 28 years of life ended in a smoking area on Boxing Day, a birthday celebration that became a death scene. What is certain is that something failed that night. Whether it was security protocols, venue management, conflict resolution, or simply the presence of someone willing to use lethal violence, something broke down catastrophically. 60 people attended a Boxing Day music event, and one of them never went home. The broader questions remain. How do you prevent knife violence at nightlife venues? Atesh had hired 10 security staff, searched every patron, taken precautions. Yet someone either entered with a weapon or obtained one after entering. How do you stop that? How do you encourage witnesses to come forward when they fear involvement, when they don't trust the system, when they prioritize loyalty over justice? Dozens of people saw something that night. Most never gave statements. How do you balance the vibrant nightlife that young people deserve with the safety measures required to prevent tragedy? Milton Keynes wasn't some high-crime area. This was a planned city with relatively low violence rates. Yet on one night, in one venue, murder occurred. Nagib's father's words echo, "Our hearts are broken." That brokenness doesn't heal. It becomes something you learn to carry, a permanent weight that marks every holiday season, every birthday, every Boxing Day that comes without your son. Nagib Maxamed deserved to celebrate his 28th birthday and wake up the next morning. He deserved all the birthdays that would follow. He deserved to grow old, to build the life he wanted, to continue lighting up rooms with his energy. Without confirmation of trial outcomes or convictions, we can't know if justice was ultimately served. What we know is that a family lost someone they loved, A community lost someone they valued, and 28 years of life ended in violence that should never have happened. So here's what stays with me. Nagib was universally described as kind, helpful, someone who made spaces better. Why is it so often the good ones who get taken? Is there something about that goodness that makes people vulnerable? Or is it just the randomness of violence, striking whoever happens to be present when someone decides to use a knife? This is part of the Christmas series, examining how holiday celebrations can turn dark. If this kind of storytelling resonates with you, subscribe for more. This has been Umbra Cases.